Well, time to replace a fuel pump on the 1968 Pontiac. See if I can get this thing to move under its own power. In previous episodes, you did see me try to get this thing started, and it will roll over after I got the battery a little bit of extra juice. It will roll over. Everything seems like it's fine. However, it does not build fuel pressure. We do have a inline fuel filter here, right there. And it does not build any fuel pressure. Normally, when the fuel pump rolls over, you'll see it whoosh, 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 gush into this little piece here, and then it goes from there up into the carburetor, right? And that's how that works. So there is a mechanical fuel pump right down yonder, and I will try to show you this. This guy here, where you see the line coming in here and then a line coming out, which is plugged off. The line that's not plugged off would be the feed line. The line that goes back, or that comes out, that has a bolt in it and a worm clamp on it, would be the return line. Reason for that is there are two technically fuel pumps that fit this car based on whether or not it has a return style or non-return style tank. If it is a return style, it has a feed line, and then it has a feed line that goes, or then an out line that goes from the pump to the carburetor. But it also has a return line that returns excess fuel from the pump back into the tank, so it circles around. On a non-return style, all it has is a feed line and then an out line to the carburetor. So that is a 3 port versus a 2 port. Makes sense? The only tricky part is 2 ports are not available. So 3 port is what it's going to be. And I happen to have one here from Napa. Part number B0167P is in Pontiac. And this should be a 3 output pump. Original mechanical style. This is going to be kind of a car that I am building to be kind of a super stocker kind of process here. And so I want to stay mechanical fuel pump. This is really not easy to do with one hand. All right. So here's our fuel pump. You can see here, you've got your arm here, that's the action. And then you've got an inline, an outline, and a return to the carburetor line. Now, unlike with some cars, some motors that are driven by a pump cam pump shaft, on Pontiacs, these are driven directly off of the cam. So that arm actuates up and down, like so, on a lobe of the camshaft, the front of the camshaft, which drives this thing. There's not a stick that pumps it, which is cool, so I don't have to worry about the stick falling out. However, it is a little tricky because it rides on that camshaft, and there's a lot of tension on that pump arm. So if the camshaft is not in the correct position, you cannot get the pump to go into the block and bolt in, which is a pain in the neck. Also, it's not exactly a ton of fun to do this job unless you're on a lift. You technically can access it from the top. It is a little bit of a pain in the neck, but it's only 2 bolts. There's just a bolt on either side here, and then it comes right out. But getting this all back in is a little bit tricky. So there's a bolt on either side here. That comes out, and then you put the other one back in, and it goes back in. Now, coming out, doesn't matter what location the camshaft is on, it will come out. But it may not go back in, so you may have to rotate the motor over, which typically means bumping the starter to roll the motor over to get the camshaft to the right spot to be able to get the fuel pump in, and then you're good to go. The other slightly small problem here is I just put about 3 gallons of fuel in that tank. And when I pull that feed line off, as long as there is not a broken fuel line, which I don't believe there is, it is going to gravity feed that fuel out of that tank directly into my face. Ask me how I know. So generally speaking, if you're going to do this, you had better be ready to commit for this and get this project done. And you need to figure out a way to clamp off that fuel line or leave it attached to the old fuel pump and hope that you wiggling around and banging on stuff doesn't disconnect that line. which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go get some tools. I'm going to get something to lay on, so I'm not just laying down here in the weeds and the poison ivy, which we do have here. And I'm going to get that fuel pump removed, and then I'm going to see if I'm super lucky and see if this fuel pump just goes directly on as the motor sits. I do have the battery recharged. I did do that over from yesterday to today, so I can toss the battery back in here and bump the starter over to roll the motor over. But again, that's kind of an annoying thing when you're playing this solo and you're doing it all by yourself, because you got to lay down there, crawl up underneath there, see whether or not it fits. If it fits, great. If it doesn't fit, get back up, walk around the car, bump the starter, get back out, lay back down, see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, get back up. You see my point? It's not a lot of fun. This should be a pretty reasonably simple job. It takes somewhere between 15 minutes and 2 hours, depending on how lucky you are. So, let me get some tools. Let's get to work. Oh, by the way, welcome to Automotive Adventures with Austin, my brand new little tiny YouTube channel here that's mainly focused at this point in time on this 1968 Pontiac LeMans. The idea here is we're going to get this car up and running and ready to go for Pontiac Nationals, which is in July. However, between now and then, we need to pull that motor out and that transmission out in order to upgrade that motor to make it run 12 flats, 1180s, something like that. So Pontiac 350 build, high performance. Yeah, something you don't ever see. Rebuild that transmission and then probably put some posi gears and get some aggressive gears in the rear of this thing. So that's the plan with this car. Step one is to get it running and get it into the shop, which is 200 feet or so that way, so that I can get this motor pulled out, because I do not want to do it out here on the ground. Yeah, so time to get some tools. I'm going to do one even better. I'm going to use the tool set that I bought that's in the back of my 1970 Pontiac LeMans from the time this thing blew up a fuel pump and left me stranded in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. I mean, fuel pumps and Pontiacs don't really get along. I am, to be all honesty, probably pushing the very end of what a mechanical fuel pump can feed a Pontiac 455. But that's 2 mechanical fuel pumps dead, and 2 times I've been stranded in Kentucky. However, fortunately, I have this lovely tool set that I purchased in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, last time it died. So I should have everything I need. It's an old pump that died there. All of the various bits and bobs that I purchased tell that this did a great job of staying closed here. It's fine. Those look great. Should be fine. Yep, should be fine. I'm guessing that's probably going to be the correct socket, and I'm going to need that to be able to take off the worm clamp, and that's probably about it. Got myself some cardboard here. That's nice. We'll just throw that down there. That should be great. I don't want to do this. I did also, consequently, already lower this car a little over an inch. See my UMI Performance upgraded sway bar there, tubular control arms, all the goodie bits. I was originally planning on working on this car several years ago. Unfortunately, life happened and that 455 demanded attention, so this car got put back here. But it does have all brand new steering bits on it, all new suspension bits that have just been sitting back here. So right here is my fuel pump right there. Oh, this guy. The other nice thing here is I can check one thing to make sure that it is a fuel pump issue versus a fuel flow issue. If I take off this worm clamp right here from that hose, it should start hemorrhaging fuel all over me, because it should be able to gravity feed from the back of the tank way back yonder up here. So we're going to start with removing that hose and see what happens. And if a bunch of fuel comes forward, we know it's not an issue of fuel line, which means it's not the fuel line or the fuel tank. It is indeed the fuel pump. And if it doesn't, and no fuel comes forward, then we may have some sort of a blockage in the fuel system, and it may not be the fuel pump. In which case, I can run a small hose off of that into a little container of gasoline I can put down here and see whether or not that fuel pump will pick up fuel. So we're not just going to go ahead and put a new fuel pump on it just yet. We're going to verify before we do our repair that what we are trying to repair is what we need to repair. Capiche? So I don't know how I'm going to film this while I'm doing it. This is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm underneath the car. You got the idea, right? Okay. Back with you in a minute. Right now I am very much regretting lowering this car. This would be easier if I just had like 2 more inches. Okay. That should be... That's nice and loose. Now, whether or not this line comes off, I'm going to guess probably not. Of course not. That is super corroded on there. Oh dearie. I'm going to get a hose pick and see if I can get this thing to pop loose. This is gonna suck. Yeah. Or do I just cut this friggin' hose? Problem is, if I cut it and it's got fuel in it, it's just gonna pour fuel out and dump that gas all over the ground, which I want to avoid if possible. All right. I have 3 options of how this line's gonna come off. 1, hose pick. 2, 3. It's coming off. One way or another, it's coming off. I think we're gonna get lucky here, guys. I think we're gonna get lucky. Okay, so if this starts puking fuel, uh-oh, we're not puking fuel. Interesting. I was very much expecting that to start puking fuel at me. I am not dumb enough to put my mouth on this and suck on this hose. Well, what we can do is I can take a small fuel can, take the nozzle off, run a piece of hose directly from that fuel pump into the small fuel can, and see if the fuel pump will pick up fuel out of that. So maybe it's not a fuel pump issue. Maybe it is actually a line blockage or a issue in the tank. That could be interesting. All right, let's pursue that option. Fortunately, I just happen to have such a small fuel tank here in the back of the car from last time this whole process happened. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this with one hand. You get the idea. Fuel can, fuel can. Got it. All right, there you go. Fuel is completely full. This thing does have a strainer screen inside of it because, you know, modern stuff, unlike just being a can full of fuel. So I do need to fill this thing all the way up past where it needs to be in order to be actually able to siphon fuel out of it. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to run the hose through the strainer. But now we get a hose. We make this work. All right, fuel line hose. It's definitely not 1/4 inch. 5/16, 3/8. I'm thinking it's probably 3/8. Look at that. I happen to have a coil of it right here. Perfect. Hose. All right, hose on fitting. Ow, pulled my beard hair. I tell you, this beard is awesome. It is not all that easy to work on cars with. Okay, so I'm going to put that fuel tank right here underneath this fender if I can. And let's see if I can not get gasoline all over me, because that would be super. Will this clear the fender? No, it will not clear the fender. This car is a half inch too low. Okay. Okay. How are we gonna? Oh, careful, Austin. Don't get gasoline all over yourself. You're gonna smell like you've been doing hot rod stuff all day. Can we get it close enough? Get it close enough. Get a feed hose in there? Guess I probably shouldn't have cut my hose down, huh? Smart ass. Oh, God. I literally need like a half an inch. I don't have a way of... I can't jack this thing up either because I'm in dirt. Okay, there we go. All right, that should work. Yeah? Believe in me? I believe in me. At least it should siphon at least enough to be able to fill that. If we could see it fill up or start filling that filter, then we know the pump is correct. If it doesn't do anything, then we know the pump is bad. And then we just do what we're supposed to do anyway. But this way I'm at least verifying. Check and verify. All right, now I gotta go get... Hold on. Okay, I gotta go get my battery, which is on the charger. Ah, yeah, rocks in the knees. And then toss the battery in, turn this thing over, see if it fills up. I love hot rodding. It's so much fun. I know you do too. You're the same stupid people like I am. You're gluttons for punishment. Alright. Negative. Positive. Let's get the keys and turn this thing over. Alright. So the only thing we're really looking for here, this actually, if this works, this actually may fire up, but what we're really looking for here is to see fuel inside that filter. This thing should just turn over, and if that pump is in good shape, it will fill up that filter. I doubt I'm that lucky, but we can see. Well, let's see if it's got any fuel. No fuel as of yet. Make sure my hose is indeed in the fluid. It is. It is indeed in the fluid. All right, if it was going to pull fluid forward, it would have already done it by now. I'm going to guess we have nothing. And indeed, we have nothing. So, fuel pump is indeed bad. There may just not be enough fuel in there for it to gravity bleed all the way down to me. I put 2 or so gallons in it, 3 gallons in it, something like that. But it may just not be enough to get through the fuel lines and gravity bleed. So, we got to replace that fuel pump. No big deal. We were going to do that anyway, right? So, we have verified nothing. We tried to verify. That's what we tried to do. So, pull those 2 bolts loose. That fuel pump will come right off. Fuel pump hopefully will then go right back on. Connect our lines and we're good to go. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear this or not, but the tornado sirens are going off and I'm getting notifications that we have a tornado on the way. So I'm going to probably call it quits for the moment because that cloud doesn't look super friendly. And that one really does not look super friendly. So we're going to pause this for right now, and I'm going to do something other than stand out here in the middle of nowhere waiting on something bad to happen to me. So I'll be back with you guys as soon as the weather clears up. Hopefully shortly. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Yeah, that does not look friendly. It's not turning though. Oh boy, that's a thunderstorm rolling in here though. I can feel that coming. Woo! Go hide in this big metal building. That's good for me. Wow. And here it comes. Wow. Wow. I think I'm going to hide out in the concrete portion of this building. I would say this is going to give a day or so pause to this project. Unfortunately. Well, hopefully that's all. Don't screw around with the weather. We just had a tornado hit a couple of weeks ago up at Indian Lake from probably half an hour from here. Did incredible damage, took the lives of, I believe, 3 people. Absolutely decimated that town. So it's been a tricky spring here in Central Ohio. Normally we're not really much for the tornadoes in spring, but this year has definitely been extremely challenging. So not going to screw around with this. This is not something to be taken lightly. Project cars can wait.